Mo Ibrahim, Sudanese-British billionaire, and someone who is very concerned about the issues of governance, transparency, and corruption on the African continent. He has shown his efforts on trying to help the African people by making sure that he gives a prize to leaders who agree to step down. And we're talking of the presidents on the African continent here. Leaders who agree to step down and peacefully transfer power are given a $5 million prize money from his foundation as a way to thank them and as a way to really appreciate their efforts in going through and helping their people, but also realizing that leadership is something that is more of a relay which should be passed the baton to the next leader in the country to allow them and to allow diversity of views and allow diversity of leadership in each African country. This is someone who I greatly appreciate and respect for his ways and for his work on the African continent. I really advise you guys to be able to search through what his foundation has been doing. If you're someone who is interested in policy and governance, there's a lot of resources that his foundation puts out, and you will be able to figure out which ones are the best countries in Africa in terms of governance, in terms of policy, for you to use just for your general knowledge. And of course, on his foundation's website, you find a lot of resources that are dedicated to educating the general masses and for you to increase on your wisdom and your general knowledge on the African continent and to read through and just understand what's happening in different African countries which you might not have known a lot about. So right away, let's get through to his top 10 rules for success today and figure out the wisdom that Mo has given along the way as he has made appearances on the African continent and as he has spoken in many other parts of the world. We're going to start with rule number 1, believe in Africa.
A friend of mine, who's also one of my customers, I said, you know, the Ugandan government contacted us and they really want to offer a mobile license, cellular license. They need that. And it's for free, you know. And he said to me, you want me to go to my board and advise them to invest in Uganda. This country, you know, they have this terrible man, Idi Amin, running the country. I said, excuse me, Idi Amin left 15 years ago. This is the perception of Africa, unfortunately. And that really was a wake-up call for me. I'm an African. I'm not afraid of Africa. I believe there is a big gap between perception and the reality of Africa. Whenever there is a big gap between perception and reality, there is a wonderful business opportunity.
Rule number 2, business creates wealth, and it is the businesses that we should be creating on the African continent.
Look, business creates wealth, okay? But Africa needs a successful business. And there's so much to be done. We have to rebuild the whole infrastructure of Africa. Roads, ports, railways, telephone networks, broadband, all that stuff needs to be done. We have a huge bulge. The demography of Africa is amazing. Half of the African people are below 18 or 19 years old. All these people coming to the marketplace as consumers and as a workforce. What we're going to do with all that? It can be a great dividend if we use it effectively, if we train them, etc.
Rule number 3, Africa should entrust its future in the youths.
Yeah, I think really we need our youth to have the space. We really need to look at our political organizations, our institutions, etc. And we need, this is a young continent, and we need to appreciate that we don't understand the world of those young people. We are out of touch. We have to accept that. The future of those guys who are not going to be there to live it. There's a lot of new challenges facing this new generation, which we have no grip to get to grips with it. And we need to find a way now to bring those younger people more into power. It is the job of us, our current leadership, to try and empower this young generation to bring them in. I can see this happening in some countries. I can see some of the, and interestingly, it is some of the younger presidents in Africa, whom now you go and meet their cabinet, and to see really a lot of young people, a lot of young women
sitting there. I mean, that's really refreshing. And so we need to empower and trust this young generation to come forward. They have the energy, they have the know-how, they understand the age. That will help us to move forward.
Rule number 4, women have a major role to play, and they have already been playing a major role in the economic life of the African continent.
One thing also I really must say, I mention here, which is the great development we have done in the gender issues. The progress has been amazing over the last 10 years. Again, we should not really sort of bat ourselves in the backs because we're coming from a very low base, actually. So a lot still has to be done. But at least that's one area where Africa moving in the right direction. 70% of African people live off the land, on the land. It's the main, really, area of economic activity. And agriculture is done by women. So women have a major role in the economic life in Africa. They are more productive than men. Everybody knows that. So there is no even economic basis for discrimination against women. I mean, because women playing their role. Not only they do the agriculture, they do the home, they do the kids, they do the cooking, they do. An African woman has a very long, hard day really to go through.
Rule number 5, as a leader, you must be open to other people's ideas.
My leadership style, actually, I think is an inclusive approach. It starts from I really don't know a lot of things, and that's not a problem. The problem, if you don't raise your hand and say I don't know, then you'll always remain ignorant, and you're likely to make a lot of decisions. And then I have seen in my career a lot of my managers fail because of this arrogance. They are afraid to raise their hand and say, I don't know, when they don't know. But you need to include people, listen to everybody. But then once a decision made, you lead from the front. Then it's finished, it's done. Then you go ruthlessly and do it. But then you have your people behind you. And so we need this clarity. You give people a chance to really add their views and inputs, etc. Then you are in a better situation, better position to make a decision. And once you made a decision, everybody falls in behind because you're given a chance. That is a way really to really move forward. And I think that's useful. Openness and decisiveness.
Rule number 6, if you happen to be one of the fewer people who get lucky to be rich, then don't forget to give back to society.
Nobody can succeed if the society around you is failing. If you are lucky and made some money, it is thanks for all these people around you, for all the society. You owe something to that society. And you need to get involved and do something. And please try to think carefully what you're trying to do, trying to measure the impact of what you're doing. And finally, maybe you want to think about your legacy. After you die, what you want people to say about you. I think probably the kind of conversation I have with any philanthropist.
Rule number 7, and something I greatly agree with Mo here, is that the African migrant crisis will be solved by job creation.
Look, education and health, especially for young people, is vital because that's what will move things. Let me just say something. This is not just a charity. People need to understand in this global world, we all depend on each other. If we have a well-to-do middle class, large middle class in Africa, that is wonderful for your business guys.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
You have to understand that.
Yeah.
So it's really investment. Yeah. Now, in Europe, there is hysteria about migration.
I know.
The best way to deal with migration is not by having this armada of military boats in the Mediterranean, but creating jobs in Africa.
Rule number 8, speak the truth, delegate, and share.
I always been open. I just say what people, and actually it works well because there's no, reason to skirt around and dress up things. I always enabled people working with me. I delegate a lot. It is wonderful because leaders emerge in the organization, and guess what? I have a great time. I sit back and smoke my pipe. So it pays well to really delegate and enable people and let them make mistakes. Do learn from the mistakes. It's fine. So that is a third one. I believe really in sharing. In all my companies, my employees have always been the largest shareholders in the company, and I think that's important.
Rule number 9, Africa needs a balanced development.
I think what you really need in Africa is balanced development. With economic success cannot be a replacement for human rights or participation or democracy. It doesn't work. One very good example of the outcome or the result of having this unbalanced success, if you look at North Africa, the data have shown over the last few years that the human development in Africa was the best in Africa. Take a country like Tunis. Literacy in Tunis is almost 100%. It's amazing. No country in the region or even in Asia can match Tunis in education, eradicating literacy. So you have a wonderful human development achievement in terms of education, health, etc., etc. But those hundreds of thousands of young men and women who graduated from college cannot find work. And not only that, they look around and they see a repressive regime, a corrupt regime, etc. Then you have a volatile mix, really, and that's how maybe the revolution started. Because Tunisia overall was one of the top 10 countries in the index. But because it has that unbalanced development, it produced that tension in the society, which resulted in the uprising.
Rule number 10, and something that we touched here in the introduction, African presidents must be selected from the youths, for the youths are the ones that will develop and determine the future of the African continent.
This continent is continent of young people. Half of our people here are below 20 years old. Yes? Look at the average age of our presidents. It's about 63, 64 years old. We're the only continent in the world where we have presidents at 90 years old starting new terms. I mean, you guys are crazy or what? We've seen people in wheelchairs, unable to raise hands to standing for elections. This is a joke. Yes, you are right to laugh because the whole world is laughing at us. I always say, you look around you. You look, United States, an economy of $15, $16 trillion. We, all of Africa, are less than $1 trillion. This is a $15, $16 trillion economy, right? The most important country in the world, like it or not. Obama, who happened to be half African anyway, become president when he's 46, 47 years old, he's president. If Obama was in Kenya, what he will be doing now? He will be driving a bus maybe. Yeah? You look, really, and he's not the youngest president. Clinton was younger than him. Clinton became president at 46 years old. Kennedy was 40 years old, 40 odd something years old when he became president. Why these big countries, much bigger than us, entrust their economies, their nuclear weapons, their oil resources to people who are in their 40s? And we only pick up people at 90 years old to lead us. To lead us where? To the grave?
Well, as you can see, guys, Mo is someone who is interesting and someone who is very invested on the future and the development of our continent, and is someone who has put not only his energy and his mind onto it, but he has begged his will to transform the African continent and to transform the democratic and social spaces by a war chest of a lot of money that he has devoted to his foundation to be able to help out and play his part on the African continent. If there is another, of course, African lion or lioness that you want me to profile next, be sure to leave it in the comments below, and I'll see what I can do, whether we can come up with a top 10 series for them or top 5 series, depending on how much content we can figure out on the person that you want us to profile next. And if you are done smashing the like button and the subscribe button, be sure, of course, to wait up for next week when we give you another interesting video. And until then, my name is Maro.